Should I pay extra on my mortgage or fully fund a Roth each year? That's the question I got last time, the YouTube live stream I did. It was actually a real good question. And so we're going to dive into this, and I'm going to share with you my thoughts on that. All right. So the Clint had emailed. He said, "Look, I have a 3.5% mortgage, and I was thinking about fully funding my Roth between my wife and me, or I was thinking about using that excess cash, $14,000, and applying it to the mortgage. What do you think I should do?" And the answer, without question, is pay down the mortgage. Let me show you why. It's pretty, actually, when you think about it, it's actually kind of simple. But we're going to show you the starting point of a mortgage. So this is a 360-month payment because it's 30 years. All right, he is only into year 3, so he has 27 years ahead of him. So what's happening is, in the first 15 years, the vast majority of your payments are going to interest. I mean, the vast majority of your payment is going to your 3.5% interest. Once you hit about 15 years, it's not quite 15, but once you hit this right there, and you're on the precipice now, you're looking down on the back end of your mortgage payment, then it's going to principal. And so the vast majority of this point of your payment is going to principal, which is why it usually doesn't make sense to refinance a note if you're 80%, 75 to 80% of the way into it, because at this point the interest is irrelevant. It's really just a principal. Now, a couple of things happen here. He's only in year 3, so he's basically right here. All right, there we go. Oops, right there. It's hard to do this backwards. Right there, he's basically right there, year 3. He's got a long way to go of interest payments. Secondly, what's the likelihood he's going to stay in that home for 27 more years? It's probably not high, but even that would be something I'd say, hey, are you going to stay in there or not? So at the end of the day, we got a long way ahead of us of interest to pay, without question. Now, part 2 is he's getting 3.5. It's costing him 3.5% a year on interest. All right, so the interest costs 3.5% a year. Presumably, he's not able to deduct it because of new higher standard deductions. Vast majority of people that no longer have an interest deduction on their mortgage. So it's costing him 3.5% a year net. And if you look at the 10-year Treasury right now, all right, so we're looking at a 10-year Treasury at 2.495. So we'll just say 2.5%. Is what I could get to lock up my money for a 10-year bond. So essentially, I am paying significantly more in interest to the bank than I could get in the bonds. All right, we do know that. So right now, if you're going the Roth route, it would make absolutely no sense to go into bonds because you're literally losing money. You're losing money. You're paying 3.5, you're getting 2.5. All right, but how about if I were to invest in stocks? What's the ability I might be able to get more than that 3.5 net? Because remember, this is net cost you. It's costing you 3.5%, no tax deduction. Even if it were tax deduction, it's not going to be much. I mean, the facts are, unless you have a $1 trillion billion home with a $1 trillion billion mortgage, I mean, if you're only having a $28,000 of itemization, and you're only $3,000 in itemized deductions than over you were being standard deductions. So the itemization is just a non-starter here. So now we got to factor in what's the likelihood I could get more than 3.5% in stocks. And I think it's highly likely for sure over 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. I do, without question. I think it's highly likely. So you're saying to yourself, should I trade in a 3.5% guarantee rate that I'm paying to the bank for a hope that I'm going to get more than 3.5% in the stock market? Because if you're going to bonds, it's a no starter. I mean, that'd be dumb. I hate to say it, but it'd be dumb because bonds will not return the money that you're getting, that you're paying in interest to the bank. But again, if we're going to stocks now, here's a drawback. Let's say you got 7% a year, all right, 7% a year. All right, so we got, we're starting here today, and we're getting 7% a year, all right? So that's the way we're looking at it. We're looking, okay, I'm plugging in money 7% a year between now and we'll just say year 10. All right, but it doesn't work like that. It actually works like this, up and down, up and down, and up and down. And so here's the dilemma, is that what happens if I need that money in year 8 and the market's, just taking a tank because whatever happened? Well, yeah, I might have been able to get 7% a year average, but on this time when I need the cash, the market is down 13, 50%. I mean, whatever it would be. So you're basically saying, okay, do I think I can get 7% a year in stocks? Yeah, I do over a longer time. I mean, I really do. I use 7% a year for sure. But any given, not just year, but 2 or 3 years even, you might not achieve that. And if you're not going to achieve that and you're risking 3.5% guaranteed for the hope of getting 7% annualized between now and 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. I just don't think it's a risk worth taking. I just don't. And so what I'd rather you do is just, hey man, just pay off the mortgage, 3.5%, because that will increase your equity immediately without reliance on the stock market. Many prognosticators, I don't necessarily believe with this negative, think the stocks will give us 5% rate of return. So let's just say you got a 5% and you're paying 3.5%. Right, so the 3.5% is fixed. We know for a fact that's going to cost you. It's going to be hard for me to do this. Let me just do it here. 3.5% is going to be flat. Right, we know for a fact it's going to cost 3.5%. The 5% is going to be up and down. I mean, it's going to way it's going to work on the 5%. So I'm not trading. I don't think it's worth the risk to trade a 3.5% fix for a 5% variability in returns. I just don't think that's worth the risk, man. I don't. So I would pay that off. Now, again, if you were like a guy pointed out on the channel on the live stream yesterday, if you were knee deep in the mortgage, you're in year 20, you only got 10 years left. That's different because it's not costing you 3.5%. It's costing you at that 1.5. In this case, I would absolutely pay off the mortgage instead, without question. And hopefully you have other sources of liquidity through a 401k, 403b, or TSP or something like that. Hope this helps, man. Pay off the mortgage. All right, we'll see you guys.